A few old poems, some new poems. So here we go. Old poem. I was born on July 27th. That makes me a Leo. I don't know what that means. I'm 5'6.5". I weigh 175 pounds. I don't know how to swim, and I'm a sucker for a girl with a nice smile and clean sneakers. I'm still learning how to whisper. I'm often loud in places where I should be quiet. I'm often quiet in places where I should be loud. I was born feet first, and I've been backwards ever since. I like ginger ale. A lot. I've been told that I give really bad hugs. People say that it feels like I'm trying to escape. Sometimes it's because I am. Secretly, I get really nervous every time someone gets close enough to hear me breathe. I have this odd fascination with things like sandcastles and ice sculptures. I assume it's because I usually find myself dedicating time to things that will only last a few moments. I guess that's also why I tend to fall in love with women who will never love me back. I know it sounds crazy, but it's actually much easier than it seems. And to be honest, I think it's safer that way. See, relationships, they often remind me that I'm not afraid of heights or falling, but I'm scared of what's going to happen the moment that my body hits the ground. I'm clumsy. Yesterday, I tripped over my self-esteem. I landed on my pride, and it shattered like an iPhone with a broken face. Now, I can't even tell who's trying to give me a compliment. I've never been in the military, but I have this Purple Heart. I got it from beating myself up over things I can't fix. I know this sounds weird, but sometimes I wonder what my bed sheets say about me when I'm not around. I wonder what the curtains would do if they found out about all the things I've done behind their backs. I've got a hamper that's overflowing with really, really loud mistakes and a graveyard in my closet. I'm afraid that if I let you see my skeletons, you'll grind my bones into powder and get high on my fault lines. Hi, my name is Rudy. I enjoy frozen yogurt, people watching, and laughing for absolutely no reason at all. But I don't allow myself to cry as often as I need to. I have solar power confidence. I have a battery-operated smile. My hobbies include editing my life story, hiding behind metaphors, and trying to convince my shadow that I'm someone worth following. See, I don't know much, but I do know this. I know that heaven is full of music. I know that God listens to my heartbeat on his iPod. It reminds him that we still got work to do. Thank you. So I have a daughter. My daughter, she just turned 6 a week ago. You can clap it up. So what's interesting is that, so she has an attitude most of the time, right? I don't remember, when she's mad at me, and she's talking to somebody about me, she doesn't call me dad. She refers to me as whoever I am to the person that she's talking to. And I'll explain, right? So one time she has an attitude. I don't know why. I think it's because I said she couldn't have ice cream today, So I drop her off at her grandma's, my mom, because I had to go run some errands, right? So when I come back and I walk in, she turns to my mom and she goes, "Your son is here." And I wanted to be mad. And I was like, that's fucking clever, you know what I mean? I see what you did there, my little shade queen, So me and my dad, we didn't have a good relationship growing up. We went about 5 years where we didn't speak to each other at all. So now that I'm much older, he needs a lot of assistance. So I try to be there for him, And I remember, so my middle name is Kayam, right? And I had asked my mother where that came from. She didn't really know. She was like, your dad was just really adamant about that being your middle name, right? So one day we're pulling weeds in his garden, and I asked him, I go, so my middle name is Kayam, Mom said that you picked it. Where did that come from? And he says, I named you after my favorite poet. And then he went back to pulling weeds. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he goes, yeah, when I was in undergrad, I had to read this poem about this guy named Omar Khayyam. I was like, wow, this is a really good poem. Maybe someday when I have a son, I'll give him the name and maybe he'll become a writer. And then he went back to pulling weeds. And I was like, yo, you know I write poetry, right? And with all honesty, he turns around, he goes, that's crazy. What? Sir, what? So, with this new relationship that I have with my dad and, also being a dad, I've been thinking a lot about masculinity, so I chose to write about it. This is what I came up with. And the article says, the Mexican government confiscates approximately 30,000 illegal firearms per year. When the guns are taken, they get dismantled and the metal is used to make other types of weapons that will later be utilized by the military. In 2012, Pedro Reyes, an artist from Mexico City, convinced his government to donate the guns to him. And he turned them into musical instruments. So somewhere, there's a tambourine, a drum set, a guitar, all made out of things that were used to take people's lives, but now they create a sound that puts life back into people's bodies, which is to say, a weapon will always be a weapon, but we choose how we fight the war. And from this I learned that even the most destructive instruments can still create a melody worth dancing to, and sometimes don't we also call that a battle? I wonder how long it took to convince the first rifle that it can hold a note instead of a bullet, but still fire into a crowd and make everyone move. When I was 6, I was taught how to throw a punch in the 80s. That was the anti-bullying movement. The first time one of my classmates took a yo mama joke a little too far, I remembered my training, so I turned his nose into a fountain, my fist 5 pennies, I closed my eyes, I made a wish, I came home with bloody knuckles, and it was the first piece of artwork my family hung on the fridge. I remember staring at my hands the same way you stare at a test when all your answers are correct. I didn't know what class this was, but I did know I was passing, and isn't that what masculinity has become? A bunch of dudes afraid of their own feelings, terrified of any emotion other than anger, constantly yelling at the shadows on the wall, but still haven't realized that we're the ones standing in front of the light. We learn how to dodge a jab. We learn how to step in before we swing. We learn the heart is the same size as the fist, but we keep forgetting they don't have the same functions. We keep telling each other to man up when we don't know what the fuck that even means. We turn our boys into bayonets. We point them in the wrong direction. We pull their triggers, and then we ignore all the damage they're doing in the distance. The word repurpose, it means to take an object and give it amnesia. It means to make something forget what it's been trained to do so you can use it for a better reason. I am learning that this body is not a shotgun. I am learning that this body is not a pistol. I am learning that a man is not defined by what he can destroy. I'm learning that a person who only knows how to fight can only communicate in violence, and that shouldn't be anyone's first language. I'm learning the difference between a garden and a graveyard is only what you choose to put in the ground. You see, once I came across a picture of a strange-looking violin. The caption said, it was made out of a rifle. I thought to myself, someday that could be me. Thank you. So I had gone through a period where, I was touring and I was gone, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks out of the month, and it really took a toll on my mental health. And I think sometimes we write the poem that we need, right? And there's certain poems that fundamentally change you, right? In the process of writing them, you find out about yourself. And this is one of those poems that I felt like really changed me. So here we go. During the winter of 2015, the residents of Hampton Bay, Long Island woke up to what they say was the worst smell they had ever experienced. Mysteriously, overnight, 1,000 fish had died in the canal. After thorough analysis, they found that the oxygen levels in the water were too low, and all the fish had drowned. Upon hearing the news, a lot of people had questions like, how does a fish drown? Don't they have gills? Don't they have a fin and a tail? They said things like, aren't they built to survive in that environment? And perhaps this is the best analogy for my depression. This angry deity, this jealous God, This thirsty shadow that wrings my joy like a dish rag turns every conversation into a conveyor belt that always begins with the phrase, "You look tired today." To be honest, getting out of bed has become a magic trick, and I'm probably the worst magician I know. This sadness is the only clean shirt I have left, and my washing machine has been broken for months. When people ask me how I'm doing, I want to say that my daughter's 6 years old, and I'm still not sure if I'm a good father. I want to say that my dad's been diagnosed with dementia. There might be a day when I walk in the room and he doesn't recognize me, and I've always wanted us to start all over, but I guess you got to be careful about what you ask for. I guess when you pray for something, you have to be a little more specific. I want to say that crickets have been known to eat their own wings, and I too have a tendency to destroy what helps me get off the ground. I really want to say that I'm kind of fucked up right now, but that's not a polite answer, so instead I pretend it's Halloween, I jack-o'-lantern my face into something acceptable, and I tell others I'm fine until it sounds like the truth, but sometimes there's a help me chained to the ankle of an I'm doing okay. Sometimes I'm fine is the quickest way to say I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes all the oxygen in the room becomes water. I feel like I'm sinking to the bottom, like I'm running out of air, but I made a promise to myself that I won't be another drowning fish, that I will not die in this canal. I heard that if you just take a deep breath and relax, the human body will naturally float on top of the water. So I breathe and I tell myself that it's going to be okay. I cry, but I tell myself that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, because I know there is a better version of me somewhere in the future. He is staring at this moment right here, and he's saying, "Rudy, thank you for not giving up on us." See, a few days ago, while I was reading, I saw a run-on sentence, and I thought, like, it could have just ended right there. But it found a reason good enough to keep going. I smiled and I said, "Same. Thank you." So, it took me a long time to write this next poem. It's about my dad and my daughter. I started this poem like 5 years ago. And I finished it during the pandemic. So I'll do it for y'all. Here we go. So my daughter is 6 years old. And right now her favorite game is hide and seek. The funny part is she always tells me where to hide. She says, "You go right there, I'll count, and then I'll come find you." I know, that's not how the game is played. I'm supposed to find a good spot, hide behind a door, a couch, inside of a closet. I'm supposed to make a look all around the house trying to figure out exactly where I am, but I don't do any of that. Because I know how it feels to wonder where your father is. Thinking I know he has to be here somewhere. I come from a long line of boys who had to pick out their own razors and teach themselves how to shave. A lineage of young men who threw footballs in the air and then watched them land on the ground. We are echoes in a cave trying to love the frequency of our own noise but have no idea where it comes from. The first time I got an A on a test, I whispered, "I'm proud of you" to myself just so I could hear what it might sound like in a man's voice. The first time I scored a touchdown, my football coach hugged me and I said, "Thanks, Dad," on accident. I copy and pasted my father into all of my best moments and then felt guilty for not appreciating him for showing up. It's fascinating how the mind will do backflips if you just give it enough time to stretch. To be honest, I thought this feeling was a pair of hand-me-down jeans, something too big for me right now, but a garment I would grow into and then grow out of as I got older. But here I am still trying to be a father to my daughter and myself. And this is usually the part of the story when I say I don't know who my dad is. I tell you I can look at 5 different pictures and not know which one is responsible for half of my DNA. But did you know that distance and proximity can eat at the same table? Did you know that a house can feel like an entire planet, and silence can turn 2 rooms into countries on opposite sides of the world? Silence is my first language, and lonely is an accent that I still can't get rid of. I was told that my father left for the Vietnam War, but only his body came home, and I have no idea who he was before PTSD grabbed him by the happiness. My father is one of the many rocks that America threw at another country. Eventually that country decided to throw him back, but every day I watched the ghost open my front door, walk right through me without flinching, and my entire childhood was an event with no RSVPs. Once a friend said, "At least your father didn't leave you," and I replied, "At least yours only did it once." They say that an apple always falls close to the tree, but what they don't tell you is that if someone picks it up, it'll go as far as they do. Luckily, it's my daughter's favorite fruit, so when she says, "Let's play hide and seek," I say yes. When she says, "Wait right there," I say I say, well, yeah, baby girl, I'm always right here. Thank you. How we doing? We feel good? So I'm gonna do 2 more poems, and then we're gonna announce the winners. Does that sound good? Yeah. Awesome. Actually, Brandon, can I borrow you?
Borrow me?
No, yeah, the book.
Oh yeah.
No, my book that you have.
Oh.
So I'm gonna read something out of this book, if that's all right. Yeah. I mean, I was gonna do it regardless because it's already in my hands. And you would think I would know where the poem is that I want to read, but damn, like it surprises me every time. Let's see. I feel like coming up.
I'd be writing.
Yeah, like I wrote this whole book and I can't figure out where it's coming, right? Here it goes. All right, so one of my friends gave me a writing prompt, and the prompt was write a poem in the form of a transmission from the future. All right, so here we go. It is the year 2036. And yes, J-Lo still looks amazing. Morgan Freeman still looks like Morgan Freeman. 20% of the population is somehow related to Nick Cannon.
Well done.
That's not even a part of the poem. I just like saying it.
Well done, Rudy.
Like he's always at a maternity shoot. You know what I mean? Like, again? That's crazy.
They got it back.
Lil Wayne is 53.
Bless it.
He still drinks lean. It is an election year. Beyonce is the Democratic presidential nominee. Her campaign slogan is, to the left, to the left. Conversate is officially a word.
No.
Skirt skirt is also a word. On TV, there are commercials that ask if you drank Four Loko in the 2010s because you might qualify for financial compensation.
What a time.
Popeyes just brought back the chicken sandwich again. McDonald's finally fixed the ice cream machine.
Oh, hey.
Arby's went out of business 10 years ago and no one has noticed. Candy corn is illegal. Stop eating that. That shit is terrible. Just eat candles, Milky Ways are also illegal.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck is nougat? You know what I mean? However, you can still buy guns at Walmart. We had a mass shooting last week and it wasn't even on the news. We still write poems about racism. Most of the police force has been replaced with drones. Innocent black people are still being killed. Now, they call it a mechanical error. So there's this thing, it's called volcano surfing, a sport in which an individual rides down an active volcano at speeds up to 50 miles per hour using nothing but a wooden board. When I first heard about this activity, I thought to myself, it must be nice to feel so safe you have to invent new ways to put yourself in danger. When the body thinks it may be swallowing its last breath, the adrenal glands release hormones into the blood, the skin becomes a cocktail of sweat and fear, the heart gets claustrophobic, the lungs become newlyweds holding hands in a crashing airplane. This is called an adrenaline rush. I was about 18 when I started driving. I was about 18 the first time I was pulled over. The officer spilled his lights all over my rearview mirror. He splashed out of his car with his hand already on his weapon. He looked at me the way a tsunami looks at a beach house, and I could tell that he's the kind of man who brings a gun to a food fight. He called me son, and I thought to myself, that's an interesting way of pronouncing boy. He asked me for my license, registration, wants to know what I'm doing in this neighborhood, if the car was stolen, if I have any drugs, and most days, y'all, I know how to grab my voice by the handle, I know how to swing it like a hammer, but instead, I picked it up like a shard of glass, scared of what might happen if I didn't hold on to it carefully, because I know that this much melanin, that uniform, is a plot line to a film that can easily end with a chalk outline baptism, me trying to make a body bag with styles for the camera, and becoming the newest coat in a closet full of RIP hashtags. Once a friend said he was wondering why there weren't more black people in the X Games, and I said, you don't get it. Being black is one of the most extreme sports in America. We don't need to invent new ways of risking our lives because the old ones have been working for decades. Jim Crow may have left the nest, but our streets are still covered in its feathers. Being black in America is known as a thin line between a traffic stop and the cemetery. It's the way my body tenses whenever I hear a police siren in a song. It's the quiver in my stomach whenever there's a cop car behind me. It's the sigh of relief when I turn right and he doesn't. Being black in America is knowing that you're not safe in a hoodie, a t-shirt, a tuxedo. Being black in America is knowing that you're not safe in a pool, in a church, in a classroom. Hell, I don't need to go volcano surfing. I have an adrenaline rush every time an officer drives past without pulling me over. And I realize I'm gonna make it home safe. Well, this time. Epilogue. So she asked me to kill the spider. Instead, I get the most peaceful weapons I can find. I take a cup and a napkin, I catch the spider, I put it outside, and I allow it to walk away. She says, why? I tell her, if I am ever caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, just being alive, not bothering anyone, I hope I'm given the same kind of mercy. Thank you. So, last poem, and then we're gonna go ahead and announce the winners. So,
Love making. Yes, you have to.
so there's a different poem that I wanted to end on.
Right.
But that one, it's on the internet. You know what I mean? You can watch it over and over again. So Love Poem Medley was actually like the first poem that I had that went viral. And then the second poem that I had that went viral was about like the breakup, Yeah. And then after that, I kind of just like started writing about other things. I felt like I didn't like really close it, So I wrote this poem. It's fairly new, as like a poem about closure. Right? So here we go. On days like this, I think of all the things I could be. I choose to be happy. On days like this, I think of all the accessories I could wear. I choose a smile. On days like this, I think of all the names I could call myself, and I say worthy, I say grateful, I say still here. On days like this, my mind, body, and spirit turn into a three-piece band, and they're playing all their greatest hits like joy and laughter and letting go of anything that doesn't make me feel like the best version of myself. I'll be honest, I don't know much. But I know a few things about a broken heart. It's probably the worst injury you can have. It happens to us all, but luckily, it doesn't last forever. I know a few things about revenge. It doesn't change what already happened, and it won't make the pain go away. Revenge is like starving yourself while making a meal for someone who isn't even hungry. It's like holding your breath and hoping all your enemies run out of oxygen. I know a few things about forgiveness. It's harder than it looks, but it feels a lot better than it sounds. I heard while leaving Sodom, Lot's wife wanted to see what was happening, turned around and was transformed into a pillar of salt. I know a few things about leaving. If you take too much time packing your stuff, you'll convince yourself to stay longer than you planned, but when you finally do it, you can't look back. I know a few things about forgiving. It's harder than it looks, but it feels a lot better than it sounds. I know a few things about forgiving. It's harder than it looks, but it feels a lot better than it sounds. I know a few things about self-care. It's not as fancy as it looks on Instagram. Sometimes it looks like drinking a glass of water. Sometimes it looks like laying down. Sometimes it looks like playing your favorite song and dancing like everything is on fire, but you are an ice cube that does not know how to melt. I know a few things about my body. It's the only only one that I have, and it becomes everything I say it is. My body does not like to raise its voice. My body does not like to ask me to rest more than once, and if I don't listen, it'll go on strike when I need it the most. I know a few things about my mind. It's the most powerful tool that I own. If I say I am, then I will be, and all of my success begins with what I believe about myself. I know a few things about my spirit. It's not something that I can point to or draw a picture of, but I know that it's there. I can feel it when I breathe, and it holds me together on days when I feel like falling apart. I know a few things about life. Being human is difficult. Being a good human is even harder, but it's still something I would like to accomplish while I'm here. I know a few things about me. I hate mustard. I think raccoons are terrifying, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I know a few things about tomorrow. It's kind of like a shadow. It's hard to see when the sun isn't bright, but regardless, it is there. It's there, like the stars and the moon, and sometimes I look up at the night sky, and it reminds me that people and planets aren't so different. We all have an orbit. Our energy decides what comes into our atmosphere. We all have our own gravity. Thank you. Can we welcome Cedric to the stage?